Hey everyone, so an exciting new feature in Visual Studio 2022 Preview 2.1, which is the new 17.9. This is one of the ones where I happened to read I was bored one night, can't sleep, reading all of the notes. I'm like, okay, that's a pretty cool one. If this is relevant to you where you're moving machine to machine, or you have to set up Visual Studio in a unified way for a bunch of developers, or you're just onboarding, new people, you want their IDE experience to be, as seamless as possible, so they don't have to install anything other than, everything's ready to go. One of the things that hasn't been easy is extensions. So they now have a way to check in which extensions in Visual Studio 2022 your project or your team needs, because you can put this file in different projects and have different extension dependencies depending on the team. So it's really malleable, or whatever the word is. But so this is the version here, and you'll notice here by just dropping in, I added this vsconfig into solution items here, but you don't have to. You could literally drop it in the root of the project and it will pick up with it and say, hey, based on your solution, you might need to install some extra components, and you go to install, and that will kind of bring up, hey, based on this .vsconfig file you just threw in here, we're recommending you to install the following things. Now, this does two things. One, it's essentially like if you go to hit the start button and type in Visual Studio Installer, and then you pick your installation, whether the community, preview, enterprise, whatever it is, and then you hit export configuration. When you do that, it will give you this .vsconfig file, which you can then use in such a way of installing a brand new copy of Visual Studio 2022 or whatever it is, and then you go import configuration for new people that are joining a company or just a new machine, and it kind of makes it seamless. So what's really new about this is the extensions option, right? So I did load in here some extensions that I do use from project to project, and you'll notice I did update this configuration, and I kind of moved it into here, and it's saying, hey, these are some new things you want to install that are based on the Visual Studio 2022 installer, right? I checked off these additional things. .NET Aspire looks super cool. I don't even know if I need that, but I was like, let's just check it off to see. So how do we get these in here? You go install, and it'll obviously add them. But so what I did was I went to extensions, manage extensions, and then for any ones that are installed, and you can just filter here on enabled, right? I just grabbed this one here, and if you click view in browser, it'll pop open, this link. You just grab the URL, copy it. And I'm sure there's an easier way of doing it. And then, you can literally you can export your configuration from the Visual Studio installer, and it'll make this file. So you don't even need all of this, components at the top. It is nice to know what components are required per project. So maybe you have some projects that only need C++ or some Unity or Unreal Engine stuff that is specific to that. You can just throw it in there. So it's nice when you download from a repo, okay, you're ready to work on something, and you're like, oh, why isn't it working? Well, now it'll tell you what components, installable components from the installer of Visual Studio are missing, and you can add them. And then this is the new part, and I've kind of added these comments here to make it all clean, putting the king of extensions himself at the top. For many of you, that Mads is mad scientist of all extensions. I think he has the single most person that has the most extensions in the marketplace for Visual Studio 2022. He's got some VS Code ones, I assume. Jason Moore, I believe, was actually helped inherit a lot of these, and then kind of made them even better. Because when you have every extension in there, obviously you could use all the help you could get, and I think Jason has done a tremendous job, as is Mads. Eric, big shout out to him. He is the reason why we love using EF Core so much. Obviously, EF Core is incredible to begin with, but Eric just makes it easy when it's functions. and store procedures, using them as like asynchronous tasks with parameters. It's really bring a bunch of the cool like auto scaffolding on steroids for your data entities. And then I just have this Copilot one for, the GitHub Copilot and the Copilot chat. So obviously, as you move project to project, you wouldn't necessarily, this one is more of like a biased personal thing where I'm like, hey, when I use this project, I want to say that I always use Copilot, but you probably don't want to put something in there and say, hey, you got to use this paid extension. You probably want to just, whatever. But I mean, this is just something I put in there to make my life easier. But so you would do that, make the file. I like to just hit solution items and say add existing item and just put it in there. Why have something buried in your root of your project that you can't see? That's why I think solution items is great. Obviously, you can go to view all files and all that at the top here. So guys, I hope you found that helpful, a way to now check in all of your required extensions using the .vsconfig file type into Soruce Control. That way, when you download a new project, you know that all of the different third-party or first-party extensions required to support, maintain, and run the project are included, as well as the SLN launch file, which I made a video about it previously, is a way that you can, when you do multiple startup projects, like that will create one of these. And now, like when you have a project where there's an API and a front end, and maybe like, a bunch of other things that you need to run concurrently to make it work, like functions, it's a way to like check in which projects, what order will start in Soruce Control. So I think having a lot of that Visual Studio nuancy stuff, I know it sounds kind of bad, but yeah, like the kind of periphery of that, checking it into Soruce Control for me is really infrastructure as code, but kind of like, periphery as code, anything to do with the IDE as code, which is nice. So hope you guys enjoyed. Take care. See ya.